Imagine a world where, for 30 straight days, 70% of France's electricity simply disappears. This isn't a sci-fi plot. It's a scenario with a 1 to 3% annual probability, a ticking time bomb that could vaporize up to 400 billion euros of economic value. Think it can't happen? In January 2022, it almost did. A problem called stress corrosion cracking forced the state utility, EDF, to take 26 of its 56 nuclear reactors offline all at once. The result? Electricity spot prices shot up to 1,000 euros per megawatt hour. That's 20 times the normal price. Germany, for the first time in decades, had to export power to France just to keep the lights on. And the scary part is, the underlying problems that caused that crisis haven't gone away. France's 56 reactors are the backbone of its energy system, and many are getting old. 28 have already passed their original 40-year design lifespan. While EDF works to maintain them, the risk of multiple reactors failing at the same time is growing. A major outage, knocking out 50 to 60 gigawatts of power, would trigger chaos. We're talking electricity prices of 2,500 euros per megawatt hour, manufacturing losses of up to 60 billion euros every single week, and a massive shock to the entire European economy. Why is this a European problem? Because France's nuclear power doesn't just power France. It provides 16% of the entire EU's electricity, acting as a giant battery that balances the grid. When the wind doesn't blow in Germany, or droughts reduce hydropower in southern Europe, French nuclear picks up the slack. It's a single point of failure for the continent. If it goes down, the whole system is in trouble. You might think, can't they just import more power? Not really. The cables connecting France to its neighbors, the interconnectors, have limited capacity. Even if every single line was maxed out, which is technically impossible, they could only cover about a third of the deficit. Realistically, they'd be facing a massive, unfillable power gap. This would force immediate, mandatory shutdowns of heavy industry. Within just 12 hours, aluminum smelters would go dark. Within 2 days, chemical plants would follow. Within 3 days, steel manufacturing would grind to a halt. We're talking about the core of Europe's industrial engine shutting down almost overnight. The economic damage would be staggering. Think about the Lion Chemical Complex, which supplies critical materials to Germany's car industry. Production there halts, and suddenly, car factories in Stuttgart can't build cars. The ripple effect would be immediate and devastating. In just 14 days, unemployment would spike across France, Germany, and Italy. The total GDP destruction could reach 410 billion euros. For ordinary people, this would mean rolling blackouts. 4 to 6 hours without power every single day for millions of households. Food prices would jump. Transportation costs would soar. The European Central Bank would face an impossible choice: fight skyrocketing inflation or rescue a collapsing economy. This isn't just a French problem. It's a structural vulnerability at the heart of Europe. The 2022 crisis was a warning shot. Duration target, 300 seconds. Word count target, 750 words. Current output is approx. 752 words. We are looking at the next major financial shock, and it's not coming from a housing bubble or a subprime crisis. It's an energy infrastructure failure that ripples out and propagates catastrophically through the entire financial system. If you invest in European markets, you absolutely need to listen to this. We're not talking about a mild recession. We're modeling a severe energy shock scenario that fundamentally reprices European assets. Let's start with equities. The direct energy price elasticity shows steep negative correlations for major industrial sectors. Chemicals, for instance, have a negative 0.7 correlation. Steel, negative 0.6. When we map this onto a severe but realistic energy crisis scenario, the numbers are brutal. We project the chemicals sector, involving giants like BASF, Covestro, and Solvay, dropping 28 to 38%. That's 65 to 90 billion euros in destroyed market cap. Steel is down 22 to 32%. Aluminum is the worst hit, down 32 to 42%, signaling what we believe will be permanent capacity loss in Europe. Even automotive suppliers take a 15 to 25% hit. Utilities are an interesting case. They bifurcate dramatically. Generation companies see massive revenue surges, sometimes 50 to 120%, but this instantly triggers government intervention. We've seen proposals like France's 70% windfall tax levy. Despite strong cash flows, the regulatory risk reduces their valuations by 12 to 22%. Now, let's look at the financial plumbing. Under a simultaneous credit and liquidity shock, baseline correlations multiply by 1.8 to 2.2 times. Corporate spreads widen catastrophically. Investment-grade corporate bonds widen by 35 to 55 basis points. High yield 90 to 130 basis points. Chemical bonds could see 70 to 100 basis points widening. This is a severe liquidity crunch. The stress immediately impacts the banks. Bank CDS, the cost to insure their debt, skyrockets. BNP Paribas sees a 45 to 60 basis point jump, Societe Generale 50 to 70, and UniCredit 60 to 85. The European Banking Authority's 2023 stress scenarios modeled a moderate energy shock causing an NPL increase of 75 to 150 basis points. Our severe scenario, however, uses a multiplier effect, yielding 100 to 250 basis points of NPL increase across the sector. For a major bank like BNP Paribas with 28 billion euros in industrial exposure, this translates to a potential NPL increase of 2.8 to 7 billion euros. Banking equity will decline 18 to 28%, and CET1 ratios drop significantly. Liquidity dries up fast. The 3-month Euribor OIS spread widens by 18 to 32 basis points. Overnight lending reduces by 20 to 30%. And globally, the euro collapses 6 to 13% versus the dollar. The currency market reacts swiftly. This financial crisis is rooted in real economic contraction. We project a GDP contraction of 1.3 to 2.1% over just 30 days, destroying 220 to 410 billion euros across the continent. France and Germany alone absorb the vast majority of that. The most frightening aspect is the permanent industrial relocation driven by sustained high energy prices. Aluminum production shifts 40 to 50% to places like Norway, Iceland, and the Middle East, where energy costs are 30 to 50 euros per megawatt hour compared to Europe's 200 plus. The net present value of permanent capacity loss in the French aluminum industry alone is 45 to 60 billion euros. Chemicals shift 25 to 35% to the US Gulf Coast. Steel moves to Asia. This isn't cyclical, it's structural. And these market shocks don't happen in a vacuum. They trigger political instability. We model 3 major pathways, all leading to significant gains for Eurosceptic parties. Pathways A, B, and C, ranging from industrial rationing in France to residential blackouts in Italy, where there is a 70% chance of government collapse within 45 days. Political stress manifests in equity markets 12 to 18 days later, and sovereign spreads 8 to 12 days later. Early acting investors preserve capital. Our analysis shows that if you move late, you crystallize 12 to 22% sector losses. If you hedge early using tools like EUR, USD forwards, or TTF gas futures, you cut your potential losses significantly, from 8.1% down to 4.5 to 5.2% portfolio-wide. The long-term picture is sobering. Europe faces 12 to 18 years of elevated risk. The required capital for energy transition is 1.5 to 2 trillion euros, and the full deployment cost of necessary battery storage is economically prohibitive under current models. The takeaway is this: markets are inadequately pricing this tail risk. European energy infrastructure is the highest probability, highest impact scenario currently underpriced. You must incorporate infrastructure shocks into your core stress testing and position accordingly. Don't wait for the official ECB assessment. By then, you've lost. If you found this deep dive useful, make sure you subscribe for more insights into structural risks currently shaking the global economy. Thanks for watching.